aspirant wanampelekea pesa. Governors 500, member of parliament, senate na woman rep 200.
Why?
See, alikuwa anajaribu kutengeneza kitu kama academy board.
We cannot undertake any piece of legislation. We cannot push any policy position. We cannot even take up a development program without public participation. So there's no way any public institution, and indeed even the private sector, can just wake up and ambush a region or ambush a community with a program, with a project. It's not allowed. Our constitution is very specific that you must have public participation, which means you must talk to the people, you must engage, you must disclose what you intend to do, and you must allow them to have an input and a say in what you intend to do. I know democracy is expensive and it's the best mode, but you tell me, if public participation is going to cost a government at the lowest something like 7 billion, how do you reconcile this between doing public participation and supplying drugs in a hospital? How do you reconcile this between building a bridge or a hospital and doing public participation?
We will soon have no country, and there's no spare. Not the way you carry a spare wheel in the boot of your car. Hakuna. So we can't have anarchy in the country, first and foremost. So even as people exercise their rights, it should be within limits and within bounds, such that we cannot allow us to exercise our rights to the extent of tearing apart the country. So this issue of how politics goes and all that, and by the way, the military, one of the core values is that we are apolitical. We don't support any political side. We defend the Constitution and the government of the day, duly elected by the people. So wakati watu wanaamua kwamba tumechoka na hii serikali na mulichagua wenyewe, alafu mnasema must go, that must go must be done according to the Constitution. Si ni kweli? Yeah, so that's why people question kwa nini military inakuwa deployed. We have a responsibility. We took an oath to defend the Constitution, to defend the Republic. And that's why it is necessary that the security institutions are professional. And the professionalism will come through academic exploits, through such institutions.
Tungetaka kuambia mkuu ya majeshi General Kahariri, wewe ni mtoto wetu wa nyumbani. Please. The military is a respected organization in this country because it has conducted itself professionally since independence. And it's the only institution that the people of Kenya trust. Please, usilete siasa kwa mambo ya majeshi. Majeshi kazi yao ni kulinda Kenya from external enemies. And that is the work of the military. So wewe usiingizwe kwa mambo ya siasa ya William Ruto. Hata ukijaribu kusaidia William Ruto, pahali mambo yake imefika saa hii general, uweze msaidia. Hawa wananchi wamewachana na yeye. Mmewachana na yeye ama bado? There is no way you can help him. So tunauliza general, please let the military remain a professional outfit, because it is the only institution that the people of Kenya trust.
Welcome to Fireside, the home of politics, policy, and polity. We've got a high-level panel. We've got Philip Mwangale, Cathy Irungu, and Kevin Osido. Kevin Osido, I realize your title begins with H.E.
So what?
What does that mean?
Well, H.E conventionally is His Excellency. Mm-hmm. And so I am inspired by excellent things. And because in my reading of the law and protocols of introduction or of pronunciation or nomenclature, meaning naming, I have not seen anywhere where I am stopped by anyone from exercising an excellent engagement in my either practices or implementation of whatever things that I do. So I am His Excellency, Kevin Osido.
I suspect Philip Mwangale may be having a client very soon.
And I will rush to him.
Cathy, what are your highlights for the week? What has grabbed your attention?
It has been a very interesting week, and thank you very much for having us back here from last Sunday, when we had a great conversation.
It was sizzling hot.
Yes.
Excellent reviews.
So, and thank you. So, it was a busy week, and a lot has been happening, and there has been a lot of remarks coming from several quarters. And of course, I think on this particular table, we discuss politics, a lot of politics and policy. So, of course, we know there was also the IEBC, the interviews for the IEBC chair. But most importantly, I think for me, is what is coming from the Mount Kenya region now that we are looking forward to the visit by His Excellency. And there's been a lot of excitement, I think both negative and positive. And there's been a bit of incitement of the masses so that maybe they don't come out. But I can assure you I was on the ground. I was there on Friday and yesterday. And I think the people of Mount Kenya are actually keen on meeting with this gentleman that they voted for. And I think for the first time, where he's going to do a tour for the entire several counties. We have 11 counties in Mount Kenya, and he's visiting most of those. I seriously do not understand why he's not going to Tharaka Nithi, where the deputy president comes from, because he's going to all the others and not Tharaka Nithi County. So I'm yet to know why, but there's a lot of excitement on the ground. I think people are looking forward to the visit. Of course, I've seen most of the projects that have been highlighted, and the ones that is going to visit or even commission are projects that have been going on. Some of them have been going on. And in this case, I'm talking about a place like the highway, the Marua, Narumoro, Marua, just around my home area. And we really look forward to completion of some of those projects. And that is what actually the people are saying. The people are saying, by the way, as you visit the region, let's complete this project. So that again, it doesn't just end up becoming another PR exercise. And we have seen a lot of those PR exercises. But then looking at it, I really believe that he's committed and he's going there to ensure that the service delivery to the people of Mount Kenya. These are people who gave him 4.7 votes, and therefore there's been a lot of million votes, and there's been a lot of stories on whether the mountain is still with him or not, and I would not want to go into that right now, but this tour will really tell us. It will send indicators and will be able to see or to detect whether the people are still with him or not. But what I know about my people, the people of Mount Kenya are keen on development. So I'm sure they will be there, they will be seen, and they will be heard.
So as the daughter of Mount Kenya, if the impeached deputy president attends one of those rallies, will he be given a speaking opportunity?
Of course. I mean, first of all, he's the son of the mountain. And he has also... I'm not sure he's the son of Mokua.
That one is debatable.
That one is debatable. I think I would... Please don't provoke me into saying the truth. Maybe he's the son of the mountain and one of the key figures, when it comes to regional politics of that area. But I think the person who would really excite the people of Mount Kenya right now is none other but His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta. If he agrees to join the president to that tour, then be 100% sure that everybody will come out of their chambers to see him and greet him.
Without spending a lot of time in Mount Kenya, would former President Kenyatta come back before you settle the matter of his goats and sheep?
Mm-hmm. he's been very active on the ground, by the way. Mm-hmm. I just there 2 Sundays ago he was in Embu. There's a time he was in Meru. He was in Nyeri at some point. He's been meeting with people. Mm-hmm. He's been talking to his people. And as you would know, is that he's not engaging in politics right now, but I know he's ready to show leadership and to give people direction, just like he has always done.
Kenyatta is on the ground. What is he doing exactly?
Now, we have revived our party. We are trying to sort out our differences.
Jubilee.
Yes, Jubilee. And we have actually agreed to work as a team, thanks to His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta, because he's a peace. That's neither here nor there, because when you listen to the people of Kisii and Nyamira, they have come out to tell our SG Jeremiah Kioni that Matiang'i is the candidate of UPA, I think UPA, or is it UPA? Party. So I honestly don't think that Matiang'i is the Jubilee Party candidate. He must be the candidate of SG Jeremiah Kioni.
Okay.
Dismus, Cathy has said that they are consolidating the party. Uhuru Kenyatta is helping them come together. But the position that the SG, who is the spokesperson of the party, has taken on their 2027 presidential candidate is very different from what the members have.
I don't know
what consolidation.
Let me tell you. Let me tell you so that you also understand that that must be, a candidate of Jeremiah, just like I've said, and he's a man I respect. 6 or 7 months ago, his favorite candidate was SKM, Kalonzo Musyoka. And until a certain point when Kalonzo was dropped and he picked Matiang'i. If you listen to Uhuru Kenyatta, he's not engaged in politics. Actually, he has really, really kept off the 2027 political affairs. He has even told us that he has happily retired, he's at home and he's okay. So I want to say categorically that he's not the one behind Matiang'i.
But you've dodged Philip's question. There's no way a politician will be another ground without doing politics. But politician by definition.
But can I tell you something? In the politics of Mount Kenya region, and I would say more so the politics of the Agikuyu, and I am one, we still believe and know, and this is the fact, that Uhuru is our Mudhamaki up to now. You know why? Because he's still the one who holds what we call in vernacular Mudhegi. And that Mudhegi has never moved from Uhuru.
What is that?
It's a symbol of leadership, is also unity, but it's actually the last person who held it was his father. Just before it got transferred from let me put it this way. Mzee Jomo Kenyatta held that Mudhegi for some time.
The Mudhegi you're talking about is the whisk.
It's not the whisk. It's a wooden stick. It's like it's larger than a walking stick.
Oh, so who gives this Mudhegi to?
It's the community. It's the community. It is a physical item. Okay. So and we know or we understand, because that is also done by men, that Mwai Kibaki did not take it. So after Jomo, it was kept somewhere in one of our shrines. And then when we were just about to elect Uhuru Kenyatta, that is when Michuki again gave it to Uhuru. He still holds it, and it has not moved hands from him to any other person. So he's still our kingpin. And as people believe in our Mudhamaki, and we listen to Mudhamaki.
Did not pick it when he went to
from
pray
where?
For those
from
many.
Who?
There's a time he disappeared and
what he he actually tried to do, because I'm also aware of that, is that he's tried to instigate and he's tried to talk to people to go and demand Muthegi from Uhuru. But it doesn't work that way. In our culture, you can't ask for it from another man. It's that man to decide that you're worth of holding it on behalf of the community.
So
up to now,
Muthegi can only be given to a Kifio, it can be given to a Kisima.
no, it can't be given to another community. It cannot even be
called
given.
the-
We cannot even give it to a Meru or a Mwembu.
It's the
Yet
Agikuyu
we are
mess.
okay.
The
It's
Agikuyu mess.
Yes, it's like a mess.
Okay.
Your Excellency,
Yes,
what did you
please.
make of the... I hope I'm also not going to need a lawyer. What did you make of the reshuffle? I mean, like, for instance, if you look at the Ministry of Health, it's... I think there's actually a revolving door at Afya House.
Yeah.
So it keeps on revolving, principal secretaries, cabinet secretaries. Is that a good thing?
Honestly, Dismus, it is not a good thing, and especially when a majority of Kenyans still cannot comprehend the degree of, let me say, confusion on such a very critical docket of a service delivery, that is health. And if you listen to the President, William Ruto, during his campaigns, healthcare was quite passionate within his sentiments and even his policies. And it really bothers most Kenyans that this very primary service can't still find a footing within government. And if you look at what that means, is from the budgeting issues to the policies around it to collaboration even with county governments, because health is fully devolved, and that the critical role that national government through the Minister of Health should have is to generate policies. And so when we see these reshuffles and all these engagements of changes going on, what really comes to the fore probably is confusion, and that the president is not so sure about the people that he is either being advised to appoint or the people whose names are appearing. And right now, we are hoping that Mheshimiwa Duale will probably be the last among the reshuffles in terms of really hitting a button that can make health care work. Because
the former CS, Deborah Baraza,
yes,
at some stage she appeared before the Senate committee.
Precisely.
And she demonstrated several facts that she had zero understanding of her docket. She did not explain the meaning of SHA and the meaning of SHIF. Never mind that she's a medical doctor with a second degree.
Yeah.
So there was, people were very excited that you have
a medical doctor,
a medical doctor running the docket, but she did not understand the subjects. The Senate Majority Leader told her to go back and prepare. And while the Senate Majority Leader is making that observation, the principal secretaries were in a corner laughing away.
Yeah.
So one wonders, how can healthcare be a priority for President Ruto, yet the cabinet secretary and the principal secretaries have demonstrated zero understanding of the subject. Zero understanding of the subject. But when you go back to the village and speak with people, they actually say this SHA, SHIF, never mind that most can't tell the difference, that it's actually working. Maybe even the thing has been a victim of policy communication or maybe misinformation and disinformation. But one wonders, if she's been unable to deliver at Afya, so does it mean that now environment, she's going to be reading newspapers and having coffee?
This must part of the understanding should be the roles and responsibilities of the people who sit at the institutions. What does it mean to be a cabinet secretary? And then what does it mean to be a principal secretary? Because in governance, when we train or when we build capacities for people who are in government, we normally tell them that the AIE holder, the person who has authority to incur expenditure for a ministry or department, is a PS or is a chief officer at the county level. And so the expectation is that the cabinet secretary must be ready and willing to engage with the technician. Because yes, Kenyans have had this desire that if you want somebody to head, for example, the Ministry of Health of Water, he or she must be a technician, an engineer, or whatever, But if you look at the manner in which we appoint people, it is too politicized. And sometimes that therefore takes away the opportunity of the appointing authority to get the right people. And I imagine what the president is going through. You have people who probably gave him lots of billions of shillings to campaign and win the presidency. You probably have people lining every day, in every rally, wherever he goes to, asking for jobs and seeking for their kins and clans to be appointed. And ultimately, names are presented, and you're like, so who among these? So then the question around the role of the AIE holder, the technical person, the principal secretary, is what is the space in advising the appointing authority to give Kenyans a proper person who can play two roles? One, be the political face of the ministry, because a number of times Parliament or Senate and National Assembly might not summon the PS. It has to be the Cabinet Secretary. But what are the levels of engagement between the PS and the CS in terms of consulting on what is, because I know that sometimes these questions are sent way even before you appear.
Yeah, it's a best practice.
Yeah, exactly. So where do you sit to consult? Do you engage? Do you agree? And as you say, when PSS are seated in some corner laughing, what is this thing that is going on? Because we also know that there are PSS who don't speak to their CSS. There are CSS who don't speak to their PSS.
And there are some PSS who are more powerful than cabinet secretaries.
Exactly. So again, the politics of the ministry, who does what, how it is being done. I think, therefore, that the Kenya School of Government, for example, or the public service, the Minister of Public Service really needs to come very strongly and boldly in terms of building capacity of public servants, particularly at that high level. Sometimes somewhere at Dismus, remember I was talking about the first cabinet of President William Ruto, and we're asking ourselves, where is the space of induction? Like, do they ever do induction sessions? Do they really go through trainings to understand even their roles? And especially when especially when a president has to come and read a riots act before CSS and PSS and tell, nikijua kukushinda kwa ministry yako, it means Dismus that there is a big problem.
But then, from the onset, it's like the president had actually appointed quite a number of CSS who didn't have either knowledge or even interest in those dockets. Because either we focus so much on regional balancing and political parties, just like giving back, just like you have said. Because health is such a critical docket in this country. In this country today, we are struggling with the non-communicable diseases. Yeah. How many cases of cancer do we have? We have lost friends, especially this year. I think all of us here will agree, and I know you agree with me, my brothers. We are losing people, men, women, children, to cancer, for example, to hypertension, to diabetes, to mental health. See how many people are committing suicide. We're even talking about several guys in the media just the other day. So many women. Even femicide. We can even attribute femicide to some of these, mental health issues. Then you cannot, therefore, afford to have a non-starter in such a ministry. You cannot afford to have a person who can't communicate clearly to the public. Like up to now, the issue of SHA and SHIF, and the way it has been demonized. Myself, I have registered, and I made sure that everybody in my family has registered. Now, when you go to some areas, you'll be told SHA does not work. It is she, SHA, SHO. That's what especially people of Mount Kenya keep saying.
Or Shisha.
We have politicized very serious issues until people are lacking services just because you've demonized a whole product, an entire product. I know there could be problems. Where it is not working, let's say it's not working. But even the communication around SHA has been so bad. And therefore, I want to disagree a little bit with my brother here. You don't need to be a doctor for you to run the Ministry of Health excellently. Neither do you need to be an environmental scientist to be able to run the Ministry of Environment excellently. We just need to have people who understand, I think,
what Cathy said is also important, that the position of Cabinet Secretary is more about leadership than it is technical expertise and experience. When you're talking about the Ministry of Health, Kibaki was Minister for Health at some point. And it is during Kibaki's time that we saw regulations and policies in the health sector really develop in the early 90s. So what I see with William Ruto, and it's an unfortunate reality, that from observation, we can tell that William Ruto identified certain key ministries that have funds flowing through them. You have the Ministry of Energy, you have Ministry of Transport, you have Health and Defense. And in those ministries, he either had a LEM cabinet secretary or a very strong PS in those ministries. And my view is that his intention may have been to control those ministries himself. Because as a president of any country, you could not have the likes of who preceded Nahumicha, Nahumicha and Deborah Mlongo in that ministry. If you really cared about the health of the country, or as William Ruto says, he's very keen on universal health, you would not have those kinds of individuals. You look at Ministry of Lands, he has his people. Alice Ome will never leave lands. Whether Raila Odinga says he wants to stop government or not. Nixon Korir, as PS, will never leave the Ministry of Lands. Defense, the same way.
You may be needing to represent yourself.
I can represent myself. But I mean, these are things we can observe. If William Ruto was very keen about service delivery in those line ministries, then he would have gone for different people. In the event that you are faced with a politician who supported you, whether in monetary terms or through their political muscle, if they present an individual that you know is a lame duck, you tell them, Najo nataka huyu mtu, but give me a different name. I mean, that is something that you can still do.
Given the politics of Kenya. Sometimes.
Well, if Wetangula, for example, now that we're talking about, if Wetangula gives you Nahumicha and insists, I want this person, and he has already gotten a Speaker of the National Assembly, I mean, the president has the authority to tell Wetangula. I don't think Wetangula has the political muscle Raila has to insist on one individual, and that individual is the one who is given the job. So I think sometimes we may credit the political machinations quite a bit, and the blame should really lie on William Ruto, who has the authority, to make these decisions.
I think Dismus, that's correct, but vitu kwa ground, in the sense, is really different.
Utopia.
Well, I don't know, but looks like really he is, because if you look at and this is based on historical appointments or how governments have run, even in the past, where at the level of the cabinet secretary, and this is really the political face, the leadership, and all that. A lot of times, the past presidents that we have seen prefer people who are not really technical, but very politically aligned. Na ni tu shughuli ya kurudisha mkono. So that then you're probably not misquoted by the people who give you the votes and or the people who are fronting their names. And we know how these names are even picked sometimes.
Are they picked?
The opportunity for somebody to say, Mheshimiwa Rais hapo imenishinda. Mimi hata mambo ya afya siwezi. That opportunity is normally not there. And if you look at a few people who have declined, because we also have success stories of people, 2 or 3 or quite a limited number, who have said, yes, I was appointed as cabinet secretary, but I have declined that opportunity.
Do we have that in Kenya?
Yes. We have.
When they considered that the money was not enough.
I've not seen anyone.
I will check in a short while.
Are you talking about
maybe these are small appointment for parastatals?
But what I'm saying, even as I think about a name, is that sometimes that opportunity is not there, because people still have this imagination that lazima tuwe kwa serikali. Even where I come from, in Rarieda, the fact that, a few Luos are in government is really so pacifying to probably, assumably, the entire community, even if there is no value that they are adding to the community. But the fact that a few of you are there makes so much sense, as opposed to the clamor to want to continue looking for those opportunities. So the chance, therefore, for the appointing authority to play games, like Phil is saying, in terms of, umenipea jina lakini huyu, look at what we are seeing even today. You know, people who have serious credibility issues, Dismus, they still get very high level ranking government positions.
Osido is, if, for example, and I used the Nahumicha and Deborah example because it's clear that they came from Wetangula.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, it's very, very clear. if William Ruto had the opportunity to tell Wetangula, give me a better candidate, whether that candidate is, he would have even insisted, give me a better candidate from your family if you have one, or from the Bukusu community where Wetangula comes from. He has that kind of maneuverability. In some instances, by the way, where you need to do that balancing in certain communities, you may only have one individual. But where you have the chance to maneuver, and we're not saying that we do not have these political realities, but the leaders we elect should not tell us that they can do nothing. I mean, there is a chance to maneuver. There's a chance to maneuver. For example, when Nahumicha was sent to UNEP, that is a position that would have been offered kitambo sana. It's not like the UNEP ambassador, the ambassadorial position just rose up a few days ago. So, the chance to maneuver and the ability to see beyond, this political calculation is something that I think these politicians do not.
And it's important. And as I support Wakili's point, as women, the gender CS, the Cabinet Secretary for Gender, has been, this time it is vacant, the next time we pick a candidate, then that person is sacked, then another one comes. Now we have a CS. But I've listened to women leaders in this country, and all of them feel like the executive does not take that position seriously. Because either it's a vacant, there's no one to take care of gender issues. And by the way, it's really unfortunate that every time we talk about gender, people think we're talking about women. No.
But Musalia Mudavadi has been acting
how can he even represent the CS gender? Or how can he articulate some of the issues, including the 2/3 gender rule that we debated here last time?
Man, why shouldn't he?
Yeah, no, but what is the elephant in the room right now in Kenya? We are still struggling with how we are going to meet the not more than 2/3 gender rule, or the 2/3 gender rule as we call it. So right now, the issue is inclusion of women. And I think that is why most women view that position as a position that should be used to, amplify the voices of women and assist us in achieving the 2/3 gender rule. So I think that is why most of the time people will focus on women. But you know what women are saying on the street? And on WhatsApp groups, women are asking, the president decided to give this position to Mrs. Cheptumo, the widow to the former senator of Baringo. So there are so many questions around that. She's a lawyer, I believe a competent one for that matter, but then she has never been in that space. People have never seen her, articulate or even agitate for inclusion of women and stuff like that. So there's been a lot of politics around that appointment of the CS.
Mr. Cheptumo was doing the work.
However, exactly. But do you remember what I told you last time? And we are not going to repeat that. We are not going to repeat that one today. But really, it is important that we take all those dockets seriously. See, now, like one time we look at this one and decide, oh no, this one we can give to the wife of so-and-so. This one we can give to a girlfriend. This one we can give to a brother or a son, like Wakili was saying, that maybe Wetangula should have brought a son or a daughter who is a qualified doctor.
No, so, but Cathy, are you suggesting that, for instance, Mrs. Cheptumo, we are told she's a lawyer, of high ranking, and then she's female. So are you suggesting that because she's Cheptumo's spouse, she doesn't qualify for this role?
No. In fact, for me, I disagree. Even in one of the WhatsApp groups that I'm in with some very senior women that I'm not going to mention, they really attacked her very seriously. And I couldn't defend her because, of course, I really do not know her. I don't understand her. But I think it is also wrong to attack her on those grounds, that you're just getting this appointment because of your husband died and stuff like that. But we know how it is. We know how these things start in this country. We know how they are done. So really, if you do not belong to a group that is agitating for certain issues, then how are you going to understand them?
What Cathy is raising is very critical, Dismus, and it really presents the kind of culture, and I think I'm probably right to call it a culture, in the sense that, for example, she is mentioning a group of women and stakeholders who have been agitating for some of these good progressive practices. But where is the space for these good stakeholders to even present a name? That's why I was saying the manner in which the appointing authority is being held somewhere becomes so difficult even to begin to consult widely around an appropriate candidate to appoint for some of these positions. And this is not just happening because
and the problem, just to add, and the problem is also the quality of women we have in some of those positions, especially the nominated women.
Yeah.
I mean, you cannot be a senator or whatever, and your work is to twerk and to go around taking, what do you call this?
That thing.
Images and all those things that they keep. How are they going to sit down with the president and tell the president that, you know what, this cabinet position for this, for gender, can we bring this kind of a woman? You yourself, you're not serious. So you cannot discuss anything serious with the president.
Because therefore...
So one of the mistakes that we have actually done, and I know most of those women will not be happy with me, we have increased the quantity. We have increased the quantity of women in those positions without increasing the quality.
So that, like she's talking about parliamentarians, the role of a parliamentarian in vetting such a candidate, where does that leave us? Especially when we are of the opinion or the view that parliament and its committees have actually been overtaken by the executive. And so it looks like a Riots Act, quote unquote, is read. Lazima mupitishe, failure to which this and that. But I think moving forward, we must begin to look at governance in totality, and especially in the mind of the common citizen, to also organize around some of these critical issues. If it is a CS and we have women who have, for example, advocated for the 2/3 gender rule, and we have a big report that was done by some steering committee that was appointed by the president, they handed over a report. What does that mean to governance, and what does that mean to such serious spaces, like now Ministry of Gender, and who therefore needs to sit in that? And you didn't ask me about my highlight of the week, but I'm just coming from Naivasha, Dismus, on a very critical national duty, where we were sitting with some officers from the Ministry of Interior, particularly the National Counterterrorism Center, on a law that our organization, County Governance Watch, started with Nairobi County, and now has been domesticated across, the desire is to domesticate across all the 46 other counties. So we are working on a model bill. But interestingly, during breaks, of course, in some of these hotels in Naivasha, you meet people who are also there for different other issues. So I listened to this conversation around, kwani hawa Kenya wanakuanga aje, So this is a conversation of some visitors who have come to Naivasha for a very critical health conversation, especially on maternal child health. And so their problem is that the ministry has sent low quality participants, people who cannot even sit in a group discussion and discuss critical issues. That from my conversation with this other lady, she was saying, even Gabon, they've adopted this, Burkina Faso are doing it. We had a meeting in New York and countries were sharing their stories. And for us, even why we brought it here is because Kenya is a big player in the global space in this region. But how can the Ministry of Health send us, honestly, people who cannot even understand? They don't even understand what... So, as we talk about Ministry of, Health, and therefore leadership and everything that needs to happen, it must be looked at in totality. But
Kevin, did you bother to establish the quality and quantity of per diems for that meeting?
Of course I did, and
that is the reason why they didn't show up.
But that's well, I wouldn't be, maybe yes, maybe no. But I think, as I was saying, Dismus, moving forward, President William Ruto needs to be concerned about his governance and leadership legacy of this country, because Kenya cannot be losing, and Kenyans cannot be losing in some global conversations and serious critical service delivery issues, respectively, because of non-engaged, unqualified or disqualified officers, people whose interest is just per diems and really politics. Because ultimately, where Kenyans engage with the politics of the day, and a majority of Kenyans, if you were to ask them between service delivery 2 years into an election and the upcoming elections, they will tell you, please deliver first. Can we see the healthcare working? Can we see this happening before we begin to talk about elections? So that even as the president is concerned about the next election and not necessarily the next generation in terms of salvaging healthcare so that a majority of Kenyans can benefit, his biggest concern really needs to be about what kind of legacy are we leaving. And that legacy is not just about the president. It's also about the people who speak on your behalf, the people that represent you.
Yeah, but before Philip comes in, if you've identified that there is a legislator nominated whose key competence is twerking, how would you expect her to vet people who are going for senior roles unless twerking is part of the job description?
So part of what we do, in what we expect to do in governance, and especially because some of these are very closed spaces, unless you are an MCA, hautaingia county assembly na upitishe law, you can only sit at the public gallery. Unless you are a National Assembly member, elected or nominated, or you are a senator, you will not go and vet. Your vetting ends at the point when you write a letter or a petition and is probably read there, or an IS are sent to go and check where did Kevin Osido sleep last night and all those issues. But at the level of the vetting, the critical concern is for the legislator. So what we can do is to rant, maybe, send messages like we have done on social media, and sometimes even to the subjects themselves. And that's why I began by asking ourselves the space of induction. Because even if you're a twerkist, honestly, if that is a proper word to use,
you need to be inducted.
Si unapelekwanga Naivasha, ama you go to Mombasa for induction, you get trained.
No, but they members of the National Assembly and Senate undergo the induction.
Yeah, I know they do.
They spend a lot of money. Both
do.
cabinet, I remember when Ruto came in with his cabinet, they had, it must have been more than a week's training, a week's induction.
Yes.
But aside from, there's, I remember him remarking that part of the induction, he was referring to the National Assembly, but I think it's a theme that goes across government. They're being inducted on, etiquette, how to use fork and knife.
In some of those sessions. So at least even as we say they do, I know what exactly happens. But Phil, you can proceed.
No, I'm just mentioning one of the things that for the politician is a highlight. The purpose of induction, as Kevin is saying, is to orient the office holder on processes and how things should run. It is what happens after the induction that we are concerned about. Because if you have spent taxpayers' money and you have gone to Naivasha, and by the way, when we talk about Naivasha, we're not just talking about Mstuni. We're talking about, resorts.
Serious 5-star facilities.
Yeah, and a lot of money is spent in those resorts. Incidentally, they are owned by politicians. What happens after you have been inducted into office? Because if you have been inducted into office as a cabinet secretary, and we cannot see the result of taxpayers' money, there's a question. When you talk about Parliament, my view has been that Parliament is the most important institution we have today in Kenya, and perhaps across the world. I don't think we have an institution as important as Parliament. Our problem is that we just don't have one or two twerkers. We just don't have one or two individuals who are there, to fill space. You have a whole house, with the exception of, just a handful of people who are elected and they know what they're supposed to do. You have a whole house that is there to play the tune of the executive. That is the problem we have. So you see, if you have one individual, for example, and we'll keep making reference to this. If you have just that twerker who is an impediment to oversight, then we can make noise on social media, and that noise would generate something. But if you have 200 people, that noise will only be cathartic to the public. I think even as we speak to Kenyans, as we complain about these issues, we must remember that it is we who elect these people into office.
I almost got tempted as you come in, Cathy.
Yeah.
whether this to work is elected or is nominated.
Nominated,
Because therefore, that also speaks a lot of...
No, but you see, they are nominated. It's an example. But you see, Kevin, to answer you,
Yes.
you have the nominated ones, and we know how they are nominated. But then you have individuals who are elected, yes, but because the political party through which they were elected has a following, they got their ticket
Through the party.
through. I thought you were going to say something else. Through the party. Through the party. Through the party, yes. But, we know how... we know how our political parties give and hand out tickets. So there's the same question, the same issue Cathy had raised about women and the quality of women who have gotten into these positions. We have concentrated on access. When we talk about inclusion, gender inclusion, we have concentrated on access. Access has been granted to this number of women. We are not looking at how they got there in the first place and what they are going to bring on the table. The same thing that happens to women, to men, for example. We have concentrated on the fact that, say, the ODM party, because it has this kind of following, has delivered this kind of people into parliament. But we are not really concerned about what is the caliber of the people who have gotten into parliament. And I think for me, that question should be addressed on the ballot in as much as we have these processes that we can engage before a general election.
Yeah, before we go to public participation, the CDF made some remarks. And, they say in political science, if you want to have national stability, first of all, you need political stability. Number 2, economic stability. Number 3, military and security stability. And they said that there's part of the society in Kenya because of the 2010 constitution. So there's a democratic space, and we need strategic leadership to ensure that if there's going to be change of guard, it must be constitutional. And the CDF has gotten into trouble simply for repeating the obvious. One forms the impression that Kenyans have become very irritable. They are restless. So that even if Cathy goes outside and says that it's about to rain, they'll say, "Wewe mama, wewe. Wewe mwenda wazimu."
Nani alikuambia unaishi kwa mawingu?
Yeah, nani alikuambia unaishi kwa mawingu? And it appears to me that as a nation, if you are not very careful, we are going to be victims of misinformation and disinformation. They even reports that is the first CDF to talk about KDF being apolitical and KDF defending the constitution to the hilt. And in my history, every CDF or chief of general staff has indicated that Kenyan military is highly regarded in the world. It's very professional, and they're not loyal to individuals. They are loyal to institutions. But now there's a big question. How do we ensure that as a nation, we do not become victims of misinformation and disinformation? Because right now, whatever you say, somebody will take your word out of context, and if they confirm a particular bias, they'll run and make a lot of noise around it. Cathy?
First of all...
Ladies first, yeah. Sure.
Yeah, thank you very much. So first of all, I think the statement by General Kahariri was ill-timed.
Ill-timed.
Yes. Secondly, I don't think, in his position, I don't think he should not have made such a political. To me, it was a very, very political statement. Yes, he clarified to all of us that the military is apolitical and they do not participate in political processes. But then, what he's addressing is what I would call the unrest that we have all. Whether we are going to say it is just on social media for now, because we don't have the Gen Zs or people on the streets right now, but we still have a lot of noise that is going on, this disquiet, and people seem to be unsatisfied with certain things. And I think he was trying to address this issue that happened over the weekend, both in Naivasha and Nyayo, where people said must go. And this is something that has gained momentum. Everywhere you go to bars, you go to all places, and you'll hear people chant those things. Now, he has found himself in a very, very tricky position. And I'm glad that his boss, is it his boss or one of his bosses, Murkomen, today came out very strongly in Meru his boss is the lady, of course.
No.
2 years. Oh, really?
His boss
So
is the
his boss
president.
is just, but okay, fine. But of course, politically speaking, whether you are a CDF, now he's already participated in he's pulled himself into addressing a very political issue.
Can we wait a minute?
But this is how
Wait a
politicians.
minute.
This is how politicians will look at it.
Wait a minute. General Kariri was not addressing a political rally. He was delivering a public lecture.
To who?
To some selected.
But the message was meant for us. It was meant for Kenyans. It was meant for you and I.
It is the media who carried that clip out of that meeting.
Do you think so?
I really think so, because even when...
Because for me, for both of them to have spoken about the unrest, let me just talk about the unrest, or even saying that it is important that we take care of our country, it is important that we manage our issues well so that we don't end up, on the other side of the what is happening in other countries around us, like Sudan and all that, because that is what basically he was saying. What triggered both of them to speak to that in such an event? You may want to say that it was an event at the university, at the National Intelligence University.
Yeah, public lecture.
A public lecture. But for them to have addressed these issues at that very event, I think they had some intelligence.
But before Philip comes in...
And they were acting on the intelligence that they had.
Yeah, but Cathy, wait a minute. Before Philip comes in, the CDF, he has said that the military is a political statement of fact. It's not debatable. You even have the constitution there. They must defend the constitution. Now, when you are addressing internal security threats, he spoke about unemployment as an internal security threat. And he said that if you're saying must go, make sure the must go is constitutional.
Do you know
that you must not effect must go using unconstitutional means?
He said that the work of the military is also to protect the government in power.
Again, that's a statement of fact.
So does that also mean... Okay, the question is, in that case, who is in power? Is actually let's say it's the entire executive, isn't it? And all the other people that are in power. So I don't think really I was wrong by saying that some of his bosses, anyway, that is a political statement. And I don't think I'm going to withdraw. I don't think I'm going to withdraw it. But basically what I'm saying, I think the statement did not augur well with the majority of Kenyans who actually feel that they have already taken into the space and they are, forget about the chant, but if you check on social media, these Gen Zs and everybody in the millennials also, they are out there and guys are talking about what is happening in the country. Now, you can't stop that. You actually cannot stop that. In fact, one of the things that personally I've picked, majority of the people who were supporting the Kenya Kwanza government by the time we were going into the 2022 general election are the same people. Those same individuals are the ones who are fighting them so badly on the social media platforms. So what is the issue? I think we need to get down to business and realize that people are not just chanting. Maybe they have some issues. Maybe they don't have anywhere else that they can air these problems from. They go to the streets, they are abducted, they are killed, and that one we know, all of us. I mean, we live in this Kenya. So what we need to do is actually, can we try to address these issues hapa kule that the people are agitating for, instead of all hii story nyingi? The lectures will not change anything, by the way. I don't think the lectures will change anything.
You see, if the only people who were uncomfortable with what the CDF said were people who want William Ruto out. I think there should be that distinction that we usually have those two sides. In every government, you have the side that is not in government that calls out everything that government is doing as wrong. It is a dirty culture that we have. It's unfortunate for us. But you see, the CDF did not say anything illegal. He just said something that was inconvenient for him to say in the space that we are in today. The Kenyans who were supporting, in fact, they were running alongside the military artillery during the protests. Those Kenyans would have been very happy if the CDF said, we need government to be accountable to the people. They would have been very happy. They would not have had any issues with him saying that, even though that would have been a political statement. One of the functions of the Kenya Defence Forces is to watch over the territorial integrity of the country and to protect the sovereignty of the country. It is we who say the people, have the sovereign power and the sovereign will, in the country of Kenya. He may not have made a political statement in saying that, if you want to take William Ruto out of power, you have to wait for the general election or do it in other constitutional means. That is something that anyone should say. Anyone who, has an understanding of the constitution should say, not just the CDF. It's just that he may not have acted in wisdom in saying those things in the presence of the media. That would have been consumed properly if he was just speaking to the security apparatus. In fact, as CDF, one of its functions is to ensure discipline in the military. And ensuring discipline means that you have your members, the members of the KDF, acting by the constitution. So in essence, he's also speaking to his KDF members, telling them that you may also, as individuals in the KDF, want this government out, but you cannot get this government out by using unconstitutional means. For me, I think if that statement was addressed solely to the KDF members and the security apparatus, it would have been, wise. It's unfortunate that it came out in the media. We had reports that there was an attempted coup, stories about people planning a coup. You had a political figure saying he saved, actually it was Raila Odinga who said he saved William Ruto from a military coup or something like
and
that.
you believed that?
I didn't believe it, but he said it, meaning that you have these murmurs going around. I mean, people can get ideas.
Task.
Yeah.
You could as well just believe him.
Yeah. So I think
Kevin, are you saying, if you're saying that if I lie and you don't take me to task, so it becomes the truth?
No.
And you say
There was a statement from the CS.
Yeah, who said there was nothing like
Yeah.
that. But let me just finish on that. It is important that as CDF, he comes out to assure first his KDF members and the people under his command to tell them that you may hear this chants. We may say Ruto must go as civilians. Even members in the military are uncomfortable with some of the things government is doing. So it is important for the CDF to lay that down. It is also important for Nurdin, the NIS director, to also make that declaration known, in as much as we know he's a political appointee and he supports the government. So I think it's just unfortunate that we had this and it was broadcast across the country.
But before Kevin comes in, we are old enough, at least all of us here, to remember that at some stage we were in the streets saying, Moi must go. Then Moi wonders, Mutani miss. Then a few days later, people are saying, Kibaki must go. People say it, Mutani miss. And then we say the same thing about President Uhuru. So this must go, in my view, it's not a new concept. In fact, for me, as far as I'm concerned, it's a very good statement of democracy. That the citizens, because of the Constitution 2010, have got capacity and competence to express a view. And they must go to the top of Mount Kenya or Kilimanjaro or Everest and say, even right now in your organization, probably there are some of your staffers, you haven't promoted them, so they'll be saying Osido must go. Yeah. But if they want you to go, they must follow your HR manual.
And
in Ruto's term, this is the only term where we have seen that sentiment that president is unpopular being taken to the extent, of parliament being breached or of people talking about, invading State House. So it is important that the security apparatus also, act in a certain
pronounce
manner.
themselves.
Yeah, so this sentiment has only gained traction and has been, let me use the term, militarized without, I think that
this
it has been militarized in this term.
Yeah, and what Phil has said actually is like you picked some words from my whether mind or soul or heart.
They say great men. I'm a sharp man.
Think alike, right?
So we must assume the two of you are sharp.
And please can you say
Oh yeah, and of course women. I wanted to say that the fact that a CDF has to react to some of the ongoings within internal affairs of the Republic, I believe is a good thing, to the extent that we even saw the military being asked to, come off the barracks and quell the protests that we we had. And notwithstanding the ongoings, we did not see this kind of reaction from the military bosses. So to the extent that the CDF has to use an opportunity for a public lecture, and I like the topic that they were addressing, because they were talking, I think they were talking about Kenya's evolving national security landscape, something of that sort. And for civilians to engage with military on the streets, honestly, what is this? So there has to be an opportunity for somebody to explain this to Kenyans. Because I remember that during that time, people were saying on what premise, on what is the law, can somebody tell us what it is? Why are they doing this? They should be in Somalia, they should go to the border and all that. But to the extent that CS is talking about it and the CDF is talking about it, it now brings Kenyans to an opportunity, or gives us an opportunity for a level playing ground. Not that Kenyans are equal to military, but they're also not angels. They are Kenyans like us. You run the field, you qualify, you get recruited, and you go and you get trained and all that. So anyone can be...
Is running.
I'm saying you run, you get recruited, you get trained. Why are you only listening to the running part? so that let me finish, Cathy. So that it gives Kenyans an opportunity also to engage with some of these very, even up to right now, the envelopes that come from some of these institutions are stamped top secret, So it gives Kenyans an opportunity to overtly engage with this secret aspect of engagement. And so I don't think there's a problem in whatever remarks, whether taken out of context or not. The reality is that Kenyans are, as Cathy said, chanting every day. Even in churches today, they said, Ruto must go. So how we deal with that issue? What is it that is still pushing people to want to chant this? Right now, we began this segment by talking about the preparations in Mount Kenya and some of the fears of what might happen, how they are being managed. It's purely because of the context. And this context does not leave out the military, especially because they already got involved in the happenings during the protests. So I don't see any problem. KDF has an information hub with very highly skilled and competent information officers. In the most recent past, and even now, we are seeing KDF even engaging on daily operations on X, on Instagram, and they are informing Kenyans whether they plant trees. They are saying, oh yeah, so-and-so was here today, he or she planted trees, and this is what is happening. Yeah,
actually, they've really opened up, because now they've got a strategic communication unit under one star general, which is something remarkable. Precisely. But as Cathy, you come in, the Prime Cabinet Secretary, Salem Dabadi, raised a germane issue earlier on in the week about public participation. And there have been a lot of conversations around public participation. Others are of the opinion that a public participation is merely mechanical, that you are ticking a box. But again, we have noticed that public participation has become very, very, very expensive. So there's need to look at this public participation and ask ourselves, how do we make public participation relevant to people's interests and also immunize it from mischief? Because, you have some special interest groups and cartels that in the name of public participation, projects cannot go on. Like, for instance, Kenya is supposed to upgrade JKI. In other parts of Africa, where they don't have public participation, right now there would be ongoing work. But there are people, the special interest groups who like lawyers, so whenever there is a project, the lawyers would go to the High Court, get orders to stop this kind of process, and a basic procurement or a decision goes for hours on end. As a politician, the only person who's run for political office, Cathy, how do we make public participation efficient and cost-effective? So that, for instance, you don't use a lot of money on public participation instead of using it to buy drugs for our hospitals.
So before I answer that question, let me first add just something little to what Kevin has said here.
H.E.
Yeah, H.E. You see, the chanting or the noise, the disquiet, whatever is happening in this country, all of us can see and can hear. Unless you live in some... participation is relative. So what I feel is even for the CDF to make the comment that he made, including H.E and all the other senior politicians and government officials, whether they are pro or against, the sentiments that are coming out are actually inviting all of us, including you and me, including Wakili and Kevin here, to a genuine national conversation. Because what actually has lacked in this country, the people who are making the noise and those who are very bold enough even to come out and say, chant and scream and carry placards and do all that manner of things, they are not as cowardly as some of the people who will say, I don't want to be seen because I have some interest somewhere, I'm a businessman, I'm this, I'm that. Why can't we have a genuine national conversation led by our leaders, including the leaders of those young people, or the leaders of women, or the leaders of men, or the leaders of the Mamamboga, and the leaders of Mtu wa Boda Boda, the ones that are really genuine. And then this national conversation, I have never seen the NADCO report myself, but I know Raila Odinga keeps mentioning it. Kalonzo Musyoka mentions it a lot of times.
It was published, Cathy. I can share with you a copy.
Okay.
It was published.
I think I participated in these processes until I don't believe some of these things, but it's okay. You can share with me. I will have a look at it. Yeah. I know that a few key issues that we're trying to look at, just like in the BBI. But then, how many of these NADCO, Bomas 1, Bomas 5, Bomas this, how many of these are we going to have in our lifetime that do not address anything? So maybe what we are being invited to right now, because it's like this is really the matter at hand. Everybody is concerned. We are saying we do not have another country. This is our only home. And unless we address issue 1, issue 2, issue 3, we don't know whether we are going to have a country tomorrow. So why can't we all wake up and be genuine and, look at all these things that have been raised, including unemployment? Now, to your next question on public participation, this is how public participation is done in this country. And Wakili is here, and this new, the Constitution 2010, because it's no longer really new, is what introduced all these things. The public vetting of public officers, the public participation, and all those things. They were actually supposed to be safeguards, I think. They were supposed to be processes just to ensure that the people understand what is happening, there's integrity, and people are really involved in the governance of their own issues. But then how do we do public participation in Kenya? You get men, women, young people in a hall, all right? Most of the time it's a public hall. Kila mtu 500. Their work is just to heckle, to clap, and go. Most of the time, because I have participated in those meetings myself, you actually feel very discouraged because your work most of the time is to go sit, listen. If you go there having a different opinion from that of the host, and in most of the cases, the host will either be the governor or the member of parliament or even the MC or something like that. You can never speak in that meeting. They will make sure that you have not spoken. And the people who have been invited, because they have gone there for the tea and mandazi, as you're saying, their focus now is mambo ya public participation. Their focus is the 500, the 1,000. So we must separate public participation from political campaigns. Because we run public participation the same way we do our campaigns. So we know everybody in this hall is for. And if one voice, uko kona, uko mwisho, at the center, at the front, that is different from the host, you cannot speak in those forums. So we need really, either we abolish it, we don't need it at all, because decisions are made elsewhere, and the people just come to rubber stamp. So there's no point of having public participation.
In addition to what Cathy is saying, and I agree with her in the manner in which she has articulated the planning process for public participation in this country, it would be important to also say that we have seen progressive steps where public participation or people who organize public participation have tried to meet certain thresholds. Now, the biggest challenge is that we do not even have a national law on public participation. I'm aware that there is a bill.
Let me ask you something.
Did the Supreme Court not pronounce itself?
Is it possible?
Yes.
Is it possible? And I know Achilles and we are going to benefit from that as well. Is it possible I saw your organization is called County Watch.
County
so that is why
Governance
I'm
Watch,
asking
yes.
that question. Is it possible to have public participation ran by people who are apolitical? Because that is the problem.
It is possible.
That is the problem.
And what,
the moment you mix these two, because a member of parliament will come with their own interest. The member of county assembly the same. I wish we could just separate.
Yeah, so it's possible, and that's why I was saying that we have seen some progressive processes where public participation has actually paid, only that even up to that level, you really work hard to organize it to be able to pay, not in terms of the money, but towards the end goal, the results of what you really want to. And part of that is purely because we do not have a law. I know that there is a bill, public participation bill at the Senate, which I have gone through. We have also done petitions. We have organized citizens across the counties and the country to engage with that particular process. But if you look at some of the provisions, even of that particular bill, a lot of it still is left for the political class. So that, for example, the bill still allows the CS, whoever that CS will be, because part of the challenges we have with Kenya Kwanza again is that we don't even have, it's hard to put public participation in which department. Is it public service? So that Mheshimiwa Musalia is talking about, is it devolution? We don't have a department, a ministry for devolution, or where is it other than in the office of the deputy president? So to the extent where the cabinet secretary is still left to come up with policies and regulations around how public participation is going to be done, it becomes very difficult. So the sentiments by the prime cabinet secretary, I think, are misleading. They are unfortunate in the sense that government should be able to undertake, I almost said, a process that gives us a bare minimum indicators for public participation. So that when he says public participation is expensive, on what basis is that expense? So part of what we are helping counties to do is that when you call for public participation, of course the law requires that you publish this in 2 widely read newspapers and all that. The challenge again is that we do not have, and what we are seeing in the counties, that where most Kenyans are, like in the digital space, it is not recognized that you can send a petition on WhatsApp or on X or on Facebook.
Or on
and it is, yes, or on Signal, and it is taken as, as a mechanism for the public to participate.
So how come we are not using technology for public participation?
Is a big issue that we really need to work on. And for example, one of the counties that has been quite progressive is Nairobi County. The Nairobi County has very many challenges, extreme challenges, but there are some small bits of good things that are working on or going on. For example, that we have worked with other stakeholders to undertake a status report on public participation. When we went to the ground across all the 85 wards, the 17 constituencies, people said, tunataka to engage online, so that I don't have to come to Huruma Hall, or I have to go to City Hall, or, Can it be possible that muweke Zoom, sisi pia tuingie from the desk of my office, I can give you 1 hour and I'm involved in that conversation? Is it possible that I can send a text message and it is treated and consumed as public participation? That Dismus actually has generated many mechanisms. This report was launched by the county government about 2 weeks ago. And if you look at the traction that now other counties also have received, in fact, Nairobi County is the only other county that has a public participation department, civic engagement, public participation, and customer care, which is very progressive. Now, the gap is that whatever the counties are doing, there has to be a national law to support it. So senators like Cathy here need to support
You've already taken that to the Senate.
at the Senate, progressive mechanisms, particularly insofar as public participation is concerned. As I finish on this, look at the impeachment of Rigiji, for example. That you impeach a deputy president, not that I am for or against, I'm just using it as an example. And then the bare minimum of how that process was handled. MPs, as she said, come to the hall, like at Bomas. Some of the areas that we observed, because part of what we do is also to strengthen those governance mechanisms. And the charges were 11, but you're only treated to one issue. Yeye ni mkabila masio. As many as our mkabila say aye, then it is over.
Yeah,
he has to go home. The eyes have it. Is that really a mechanism of public participation? So let me say that the challenge in having mechanisms, rather indicators, bare minimums. For example, when we involve people in a hall and they are visually impaired, or they can't speak, they can't hear, they are deaf? Do we have sign language interpreters? You want to do a public participation meeting and the hall is on 4th floor. How will this brother of mine who is on a wheelchair, and I saw this happening in one of the counties just on Tuesday, this week that is ending, where somebody has to leave his wheelchair underground and has to be lifted. So the photographers wanted to do a group photo. And they were like, tuteremke chini ama tupande juu. But I was telling them, tukiteremka chini, how will these people who are on crutches and, how will they go back and then go down and come back up? So there are lots of things that we have to do in terms of strengthening our mechanisms for public participation, including arriving with bulky documents, which you are seeing for the first time. Alafu gazeti imesema mkutano inaanza saa 3, you arrive at 12. Then you are there telling citizens, na mjua hatuna time, leo tuko na mikutano kama 8 kama hii. So why didn't you come early? And why are you so disorganized to plan 8 meetings on the same day? So many things I can share about public participation, but I believe that there is space and chance to make this better.
So Philip, as we strive to make it efficient and cost-effective, how do we tell, public participation? You say that the authorities may come with bulky documents, but I also see members of the public coming with bulky documents. So how do you establish quality and quantity? And say you want to upgrade JKIA, and somebody comes with a bulky document, probably just voodoo. It doesn't make sense. How do you ensure that it's a tricky question about quality and quantity in public participation, and then how do you immunize that public participation from selfish interests, from cartels, and from these people? As soon as they lose a tender or a contract, they'll say, "Kama sio mimi, pewa upati."
First of all, there are two things that the Constitution provides. Article 118 says that Parliament shall make all effort to make sure that the public participates and is involved. So there is public participation and public involvement. And that article specifically came from a point where you had a parliament, the National Assembly before the 2010 Constitution, operated in opaqueness. So you didn't know what was happening in parliament. You only, got to see laws once they were being assented to by the president. So that was the history behind Article 118 on public access and participation. But then the Constitution says, and I differ a lot with my colleagues who are in the Constitution and human rights space, the Constitution says that Parliament shall, make sure that there is public participation and involvement in legislative affairs and other businesses of Parliament. So the provision of the Constitution that has been used to, say that government ought to be compelled in case there is policy, in case, for example, there's a road that needs to be constructed, so that the public is involved in participation, is Article 10 on our values, that the public has to participate. But I think there's a difference, there's a big distinction between participation and involvement. Parliament, the businesses of Parliament, legislation, all bills and all these things, the public must participate. In other affairs of government, the public can only be involved. So I think when we have all activities, all actions of government and the state having to meet the threshold of public participation, then we are going to run into problems. Because if any action, you mentioned JKIA, for example, in my view, I do not think that the upgrading of JKIA should be subjected to public participation. But the public must be involved. Involvement means that you have transparency. And transparency means that government is saying what it is going to do. So that in case there is anyone who has an issue, they have an avenue to present those issues. But with participation, you then have a requirement to use the views of the public for whatever action you're taking. So legislation, for example, and by the way, there are too many bills that are going through Parliament in this term for the ordinary citizen to engage with. And unfortunately, those bills are in English. So when you're talking about participation, if you do not understand English, and by the way, legislation is not crafted in simple and plain English. So if you do not understand English, then you're locked out of public participation. You then are at the mercy of now the hosts who come and tell you, this is what we want to do. When you're nataka to mikono, which is very unfortunate.
And even for those who can't, who are visually impaired.
Exactly. So unless you have an organization like Osido's, or you have the money and the time to sit down and have your own bill tracker of the National Assembly and Senate, you can't really catch up with these things. The notices that newspapers, they are done as a matter of course. In some instances, by the way, some of these government institutions are praying that no one comes with views. But public participation on now bills and acts of parliament, I think parliament has tried. Having engaged with some of the parliamentary committees on collection of views, some of them have tried. The challenge we have is where, as Kevin has mentioned, you have the county assembly or the National Assembly saying they will have participation sessions in particular regions. So in Nairobi County, they will mention 2 places or sometimes 1. In Kiambu, they will mention 1 place. And so everyone in the county who has views about that issue should go to that place, which is unfortunate. The other bit also is on now access to this information that the public ought to participate on. The bills, for example. If you don't know where to find the bills, you will not find them. The notices in the newspapers usually have a link that directs you to Parliament, for example. So if you do not know where to access, it will direct you to the website, not to the specific bill that they are talking about, to the website. So we have made it complicated for the people to participate. Kevin has also mentioned the bill. We have a lot of issues with that bill. But even in the absence of the bill, we are still doing very little to enable the people participate. But I must still insist, public participation should only be on legislative processes. Involvement should then be on these other issues of policy. Otherwise, we'll have a scenario where, for example, you have a policy that needs to go through and somebody goes to court because the Constitution grants them the right to.
When you say legislative and policy, what do you mean?
So legislative is the bills we have, for example. The people must participate because the people who are making those bills are making them as representatives of the people. But when you talk about policy, let me borrow a policy that I was involved in quite a bit, the National Parenting Policy that is domiciled in the Ministry of Social Labor and Social Protection. If you have a policy like that and you have a requirement that the public must participate, so if I am aggrieved and I'm saying I was not involved or a certain demographic was not involved, I go to court and I say that policy should not go through because the public was not involved, it then stops that policy at that point. So there's certain actions and processes that government is involved in that should not be subjected to litigation at every turn. Which is what we have been
and Philip, I think that is really the practice because you also don't come across public participation calls on policies because I think in the manner in which they are initiated because the policies come from
cabinet,
from the executive, so the cabinet generates, and it is the expectation that in the event that a law is required or a bill, then the county assembly or parliament, particularly the National Assembly, would execute it through a representative. But what really needs to be of concern to a majority of Kenyans is the value of public participation. As Cathy rightfully said, we have experiences where people are even organized in WhatsApp groups. So the meeting is going on and you're seeing everyone is busy on their phones. They are engaging, those who have been invited by certain political interests or selfish interests,
Some of those public participation forums have turned chaotic.
Yeah.
Because they are totally political. But then with the benefits that I've picked from the two gentlemen here, one who is involved, in the entire process on the ground, and of course, Wakili here, a practitioner.
The H.E.
Your Excellency, I want to say this, that actually the public participation is a good thing. And traditionally, the way we do our public participation, it leaves out the middle class.
Precisely.
And basically, middle class and above. It's a bit divisive. So when you leave out a very integral part of the community that understands, that can really engage in the kind of a conversation that we're having here, people who can say, yeah, let me look at the constitution, or even just, plainly understand in a layman's even language. That is very unfortunate. So if you look at the public participation that takes place in this country, it targets a certain class of individuals, and therefore it leaves out a huge chunk of people who can add value into the process. Having said that, I also want to say that the middle class in this country are also the problem. Because as long as you're comfortable, you feel you have a salary, you have a car, your children go to a good school, you really most of the time are not very interested in these processes. And therefore, when you are not heard and we cannot see you, even if we are going to spend 1 million hours on this program and many other programs making noise, it will never translate into something. So I challenge the people who understand these things, the lawyers, the doctors, most of the mamambogas and the boda people today are quite educated. Let's get the information, because I believe that information is power. If you look at, if you go and engage people on the ground on matters, legislation, like Wakili here was saying, and policy, the kind of confusion on the ground on who is supposed to do what. You go and talk to people and they will say, no, we do not have a road because of William Samoei Ruto. At times, the president is blamed for so many things.
Yeah, even if he doesn't shine, even if the sun doesn't come out.
And even the road we are talking about is actually is an MCA barabara down there in the village. And it is the work of the MCA to make sure that it happens. In fact, even when it comes to devolution and the functions that are devolved, going by this constitution, you find that people do not understand a lot of those things. You know why? Because we are busy politicking. We do a lot of politics, the noise and everything, and we leave a lot of good things out. I actually do not think that we have a bad constitution. And in the constitution we have today is quite progressive.
And you've raised a very fundamental point, especially when it comes to the election of our leaders. Because the middle class you talk about, they know there's something called party primaries, but they never, ever participate in the party primaries. They're not even members of political parties.
No, but what are you talking about, members of a political party? Which political party follows the party list, the party membership list during the party primary?
But no one holds them accountable, because you only have a few members who are members of that political party.
But that is actually very unconstitutional, because according to the Political Parties Act, the people who are supposed to participate in party primaries should be members of a political party.
Parties, yeah.
But that is not that doesn't happen on the ground. I agree with you, Wakili. But then what are we supposed to do? Because at times I participate in a lot of boardroom meetings and this kind of conversation on radio, on TV, until I get tired, because I really know the difference between what we are saying here, the four of us, and na vitu zile ziko kwa ground.
Cathy is raising very critical issues that really must concern all of us, and particularly the middle class. And I just wanted to weigh in on the public participation issue, that normally when the Gazette notice comes out, the call is dual, is double-sided. So you can appear physically during that meeting, or you can do a memorandum. So they provide you with an email address and also an address where you can either deposit, you can do a hard copy delivery, which must be received. So make sure you go with 2 copies, unawaachia yao, then they receive yours and stamp received. If it is the Senate or National Assembly or at the County Assembly, the clerks will receive
Is that stamp for read and understood?
No, it is just a stamp for received, and then it has the seal of the organization, or you go physically. So for the middle class who might not have that time, of course there are certain issues like maybe ruhusa kutoka job, etc. In some meetings, I've seen people actually even bashing the officials and saying, mnajua tumetoka kazi, tulikuja hapa kuwapatia 2 hours, nyinyi mnakuja late. So that conversation really also needs to be meaningful to those who plan for those meetings. So for the middle class, do a memorandum. And we need to organize for a session where we can also draw and show people how the memorandum is being done. Because there's also a template on how that thing needs to be done. So once you have done your memorandum, you can also send it via email and make sure that it is they send you back received. And we have seen very progressive examples that have been done. On the political parties, it also must bother us that failure to get involved is the reason why we have people who cannot even speak. In fact, there are people even in this, we are in the 13th parliament, who have never said, in fact, spoken a word. Lakini kwa mtandao, they are the noisiest, they are very, You know
why?
I don't know.
We have entertained the idea of taking to Parliament, both National Assembly, because I don't think governors, we have many jokers, but
they have said
Senate
some don't have certificates.
And the National Assembly, socialites.
Yeah.
Especially where
You can use the term we used.
No, we are not going to use that one again. You're not going to use that one again.
But in the interest of this highly educated lawyer, who is a socialite?
Okay, I'll define it differently. I know what you want me to say, and I will not say it. So, so you see, so I think majority of us Kenyans have smartphones. And therefore, we have all these Facebook, we have WhatsApp, we have all these social media platforms that we engage on and with. So those platforms has given rise to a huge number of very popular individuals, both men and women, who just because they are known and they have a big name and they participate in that or in the other, and part of it is also very negative what they participate in.
Yeah, their knowledge is not for good things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, in the process, once that person becomes very popular, and that is what I would now call a socialite, they qualify to hold positions of power, like a member of parliament or a senator or those kind of things.
Even become thought leaders.
How we got there?
The thought that is missing.
How we got there, I don't understand. I think we have misused social media so much, such that, and it is also leading us to the lot of negativity that we see on social media. And until you wonder, don't we have anything positive to discuss even about our country? We've actually overexposed Kenya so badly to the outside world. Yeah. Did you see during the Mandamano, there were some people who were even sharing the map of State House and things like those. And even our enemies can take advantage of that. It is a security breach.
Yeah, no, because time is not on our side. I'll take just 3 feedbacks, and they seem to be aligned to tribal interest. A gentleman called Joseph Maina says she can't wait for Cathy Irungu to go to the National Assembly.
Thank you.
So it looks like there are people interested in you. Another one says that Mwangale has expressed some views from Utopia. So it appears that
Utopia has to have an ambassador.
Arudi kwa ground.
And then another one says that Kevin Osido, H.E, has used the forum. This show to market is a civil society organization very well. So it appears like you've earned your bread. And then another person has indicated that Nyachai comes from a very strong family, is beyond monetary issues, that he probably deserves to be the chairman. So because time is not on our side, could you get the unpopular opinions? Sorry, actually, controversial opinions, because Kevin Osido, you may not know what that is. We'll start with Mwangale.
The utopic member. Let me give you an opinion from Utopia. But by the way, it's good to have some of those utopic conversations, because they help us, have an ideal situation. But my controversial opinion would be a little broader than the country. The other day, we saw William Ruto appoint Raila Odinga as special envoy to South Sudan. I think with the hope that Raila Odinga and Salva Kiir would have a fellowship on their infirmities and hopefully come to to a resolution on the issue in South Sudan. But I'm mentioning South Sudan because South Sudan's health and really our neighbors have a bearing on how Kenya progresses. I think the African Union is failing South Sudan, and especially because the issues in South Sudan we thought had been resolved by the revitalized peace agreement in 2016 and 2018. But we have seen a lot of interference in South Sudan from Kenya, from Uganda. Uganda has, its soldiers in South Sudan today. Kenya has, interaction with certain political actors of South Sudan. My controversial opinion is this, that Kenya needs to cease interfering in the political affairs of our neighbors. We are creating a very bad precedent for ourselves and for the region. The people we are supporting in these political arguments and political conflicts will at one point leave government. And those who are in the opposite direction will get into power. What this is doing to us is we are reducing the premium that the citizen of Kenya has outside this country. We will be seen as meddlers. Even those of us who are leaving the country to go work in Tanzania, South Sudan, Uganda, and so on, will be seen as meddlers. And I think this needs to stop, and it needs to stop by the president getting competent people, though this is a dream again, him getting competent people in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, because our foreign policy, in as much as it is too fluid to give us direction, is really hurting this country in the long run.
You want the only lady to go so that I can learn proper. No, the lady will do that.
It's okay.
I think my controversial opinion would go to the IEBC selection panel. That regardless of the outcome of the interviews, both for the commission chair and also for the commissioners, IEBC must build trust in Kenyans so that the notion that this process is just to meet certain constitutional expectations, again, of public participation, are dealt with. Because we have had people say, so-and-so has worked with the president's party, so-and-so was called to apply. And we have seen, even within the interviews as they evolve, people raising some very critical integrity issues, of some of the candidates or people, and some of them who have pasts that really look dented. So this is not new to similar processes of vetting that we have had in the past. But the long and short of it is that the selection panel of the incoming IEBC must seek to give Kenyans a candidate who, even as they present their interests and also their motivations around why they want to be either commissioners or the IEBC chair, their interest really must be to work for Kenyans, to give Kenyans a transparent, verifiable, accountable election, and one that will not take us to what we have seen in the past, where Kenyans are either taken to 2 elections in a year or hefty costs of what is either called digital or analog election, which ultimately do not give Kenyans the kind of space to have leaders who will be relevant for what Kenyans want to see. So the opinion is IEBC the selection panel must seek to use this opportunity, God-given opportunity, to bolster trust, to renew that trust in Kenyans, so that ultimately we say the losses that we have had, including, may God rest his soul in peace, the former chair, Chebukati, those losses, ultimately we should see some silver lining and great light that beams for the progressive Kenya at the tail end of that tunnel.
Mine is actually very similar to Kevin's. And I was at Bomas in 2022 as we were concluding the general election. And for me, as someone who was on the other side, I think I was treated to some 60 seconds of shock. And I really felt like communication was the last thing that the commission and the chair were focused on, because at some point there was too much dancing, and in the information that was flowing was not flowing very well. And in Swahili we say "ghafla bin fu," or is it fu or vu? Within a second, the commission was split into two, and of course we know what followed. I would really ask and hope and pray that we get a female IEBC chair this time. I believe that it is easier for a woman to communicate, to bring people together even where there are disagreements. And in this case, I want to say that clearly I'm rooting for a woman IEBC chair.
I wanted to pronounce her name, but I thought...
No.
Thanks, Cathy Irungu, H.E Kevin Osido, and Philip Mwangale for your time. That has been Fireside, the home of politics, policy and policy. Asante.